We are jumping straight into a pretty dense stack today.
Yeah, very high stakes here.
We're looking at the recently unveiled 20-point peace proposal for Gaza.
The one jointly announced by President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Right. It's being called a historic breakthrough. Big words.
Huge words. But, it landed right in the middle of some of the heaviest fighting we've seen.
Okay, so the context is vital. Our mission for you today is really to get past those headlines.
Exactly. We need to look at what the sources are actually saying about the plan. Its demands, the long-term vision.
And critically, why it's, well, non-negotiable terms might have made it tough from the start for some key groups.
Let's set that scene first, though, the timing.
Yeah, you mentioned the fighting. This wasn't announced during a lull.
Not at all.
Damn.
The sources say it came right as Israeli tanks were pushing deeper into Gaza City, a major offensive underway.
And the human cost behind all this.
It's grim. Health authorities in Gaza, cited in our sources, report over 65,000 people killed since the war started back on October 7th, 2023.
65,000.
Yeah. So announcing a peace plan against that backdrop, well, every single detail gets scrutinized. Urgency, distrust, desperation. It's all there.
Okay, so let's unpack that historic breakthrough claim. Let's look at the immediate terms. Section 1, right? What does it demand right now?
Right, the immediate stuff. It focuses on stopping the fighting fast and centrally the hostages.
The hostage situation is obviously incredibly sensitive.
It's priority number 1 in the plan. It calls for an immediate ceasefire, sure, that's standard, but then it gets very specific on hostages.
How specific?
The demand is for the release of all hostages held by Hamas. And the timeline, well, it's just 72 hours, non-negotiable.
72 hours. Wow. For an organization like Hamas, that seems almost impossible. Is that a negotiation tactic or?
It feels much more like an ultimatum, doesn't it?
Yeah. It leaves basically zero room for the usual back and forth you see in these situations.
Absolutely. No room at all. It kind of forces the question, does Hamas even have the kind of centralized control to pull that off so quickly?
Puts the pressure squarely on them globally.
Completely. Now, besides the hostages, Israel also has commitments under this plan, right? The withdrawal.
Yes. The plan requires a staged Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. That's a big piece.
It is. It signals something beyond just a temporary pause, a potential end state, geographically speaking.
But staged is the key word there. It sounds like the timing depends entirely on Hamas complying first.
That's the implication. Compliance unlocks the next stage.
And Netanyahu's language around this, it wasn't subtle.
Not at all. The sources really highlight how forceful it was. Basically telling Hamas, comply or the offensive continues, with full U.S. backing.
He actually said, this can be done the easy way or the hard way, but it will be done.
Yeah. That kind of statement is important for you, the listener, to notice. It suggests the plan might have 2 goals.
Peace being one.
Peace being the stated goal, yes, but maybe also setting up this undeniable geopolitical line in the sand, aligning the U.S. and regional players behind this ultimatum.
So it shifts all the blame for continued conflict onto Hamas if they don't meet that 72-hour deadline.
Precisely. It frames any continuation of the hard way as Hamas's choice.
Okay, so whether it's the easy way or the hard way, if this initial phase happens, there's a power vacuum. Which brings us to Section 2. Governance and reconstruction. This is the long game.
Right. And this is where, honestly, the complexity really ramps up, moving from military demands to, well, political engineering.
Who runs Gaza if this plan goes forward?
The idea is a transitional governing authority, something pretty sophisticated, designed to avoid the chaos we've seen after previous ceasefires.
And this authority, it would be overseen internationally, is that right?
Initially, yes. The sources suggest an international body would oversee things.
Any specifics on who? The UN Arab League?
The documents are a bit vague there. It implies more of a multinational coalition, likely involving key Arab states who support the plan, maybe the U.S., not strictly a UN operation.
And the goal of this international body?
To act as a kind of security and admin shield, stabilize things while the intended successor gets ready.
And that successor is the Palestinian Authority, the PA.
That's the plan. The PA is meant to eventually take a central role.
But there's a big but.
A very big but. Only after the PA undergoes major internal reforms and holds elections.
Ah, so the PA welcomes this because it puts them back in the picture.
Right. It restores their relevance, potentially.
But they have to fundamentally change first, according to these international demands for, what? Transparency, effectiveness.
Exactly. And that's the tightrope they have to walk. Can they actually implement the reforms demanded? Historically, that's been tough.
Doesn't that reform requirement essentially guarantee the international body stays in charge for quite a while? It kind of sidelines the PA immediately.
It certainly seems designed that way. It makes Hamas irrelevant from day one if they comply. And it ensures the PA doesn't just walk into the vacuum without proving itself first.
So it's a delay mechanism, built-in control.
You could definitely see it like that. It pushes the PA towards conditions they've resisted before, which, makes you wonder how feasible that whole PA reform track really is.
And speaking of control, there was a really specific name dropped in the documents regarding this international administration.
Ah, yes, Tony Blair.
Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair. What's the significance of floating a name like that? Is it serious?
Well, it's partly signaling, isn't it? Maybe some political theater, but it's intentional.
How so?
Putting forward a high-profile name like Blair, someone known for Northern Ireland, his previous quartet role signals to the world, we're serious about this transition.
Suggests they want figures who can command respect, manage complexity.
And crucially secure funding. Which brings us neatly to the other big pillar here, the economics.
Right, the economic development plan. This sounds like more than just basic aid.
Oh, much more. The language is about transformation.
Okay.
The underlying idea is that lasting peace needs a totally different quality of life in Gaza. So it calls for massive international investment.
To rebuild everything, infrastructure, energy, the whole economy.
Completely restructure it. And this huge economic commitment, it also serves another purpose.
Which is?
It acts as a major incentive for those regional Arab states to stay on board. Linking their potential financial contributions to achieving security goals makes it a shared project.
Makes sense. Now, within all this reconstruction talk, there's the incredibly sensitive issue of displacement, people moving or being forced to move. How does the plan address that?
Very carefully, the language in the draft seems extremely deliberate on this point.
What does it say?
It explicitly states, no one will be forced to leave Gaza, and those who wish to leave will be free to do so and free to return.
Okay, no one will be forced to leave, free to return. Why is that specific phrasing so critical?
Because it directly confronts a core fear, especially for neighbors like Egypt and Jordan. The fear that Israel's operation could result in a permanent, forced expulsion of Gazans. The Nakba narrative looms large.
So, by putting that guarantee in writing,
they aim to reassure those Arab states, make it easier for them to publicly support the plan, and maybe, down the line, contribute financially.
it acknowledges that you can't get regional buy-in if you ignore those deep historical wounds around displacement.
Exactly. Even if it's just on paper initially, it's a necessary diplomatic step.
All right. So we got this detailed plan, 72-hour deadline, staged withdrawal, international governance, PA reforms, massive economic plan, displacement guarantees. Seems comprehensive on paper.
It covers a lot of ground.
Now, the crucial question, Section 3. Who actually supports this thing? And what are the big challenges?
Well, on the support side, it did manage to gather some significant diplomatic weight, which isn't easy in this region.
Starting with the Palestinian Authority.
Yes, the PA. Despite those demanding reforms we talked about, they welcomed it, praised Trump's sincere and determined efforts, and committed to working towards a two-state solution.
Okay. And beyond the PA, what about the key regional powers?
That's maybe even more significant. Major Arab states, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, the UAE, Qatar, they all signaled what the sources describe as cautious support.
Cautious support. So not a full embrace, but they're not rejecting it outright.
Right. And that alignment is powerful. It suggests that whatever their private reservations, the geopolitical calculation for them favors this framework over just letting the conflict continue indefinitely.
Well, and this feels like a huge but. Getting governments to nod along is one thing.
It's only half the battle, maybe less than half.
Getting compliance on the ground in Gaza, that's different. And the elephant in the room, highlighted in our sources, Hamas wasn't consulted.
Not directly consulted before the announcement. That's the massive gap critics jumped on immediately.
So the plan was just present.
Essentially, yes. A senior Hamas official confirmed they hadn't even received the plan when Trump and Netanyahu unveiled it. The terms were passed on later, through mediators like Qatar and Egypt.
But that initial exclusion, it frames the whole thing as an imposition, not a negotiation.
Precisely. It starts its life as a dictate.
And we saw pushback immediately from other factions, too.
Oh, yeah. Outright rejection from Islamic Jihad. They're allied with Hamas, backed by Iran. They dismissed it completely, called it, quote, a recipe to blow up the region.
So no buy-in from the key militant groups who actually control territory and fighters inside Gaza.
And that's the core problem for you, the listener, to grasp. You have this impressive structure on paper. You have regional governments cautiously on board.
But the group whose compliance the entire plan hinges on, especially in those first 72 hours,
Was bypassed.
presented with an ultimatum.
It raises fundamental questions about whether this plan can actually achieve a lasting ceasefire or political settlement.
How can it if the main party on the other side wasn't part of crafting it and rejects its premise?
That's the central tension, isn't it?
It really sums it all up.
Yeah.
A very detailed roadmap, governance, economics, regional support,
All meticulously laid out.
but potentially fatally flawed because the key actor on the ground, Hamas, was deliberately left out of the drafting room.
It seems designed for geopolitical success, perhaps, getting alignment among states.
But maybe not for operational success, getting it done on the ground.
That could well be the case. And it leaves us with a final thought for you to chew on.
Okay.
Given how absolutely conditional this whole plan is, everything rests on Hamas complying within that incredibly tight 72-hour window.
Yeah.
What does the way it was unveiled unilaterally, this historic breakthrough, announced before Hamas even saw the terms, what does that tell us about the real primary goal?
Was it genuinely about implementing peace?
Or was it more about setting up a global geopolitical justification, an ultimatum designed to legitimize continued military action the hard way, if, or maybe when, Hamas didn't comply?
That's a really critical question. Peace plan or justification for the alternative?
It's something to watch very closely. How this plays out will tell us a lot.
Powerful analysis, as always. Thank you for walking us through this really complex set of sources today.
My pleasure. Always interesting to dive deep.
And thank you for joining us on the Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.